Tundo sangana kumal, tundo sangana ikoko. Tundo sangana we, tundo sangana ikoko. Tundo sangana we, tundo sangana.
Thank you very much. A very good morning to you, members of the Fourth Estate, members of the Citizens Coalition for Change, fellow Zimbabweans, fellow Africans, and citizens of the world. I welcome you to this very important press briefing on our electoral preparedness as we head into the shadows of the next election. You know that we do this as per our tradition to keep you members of the media, fellow Zimbabweans, and interested parties on our preparedness as a movement towards the next election. Firstly, let me thank fellow Zimbabweans for holding forth in very difficult time and supporting the citizens movement and making sure that we are strong and ready to form the next government. You know that the citizens movement places citizens at the center of our decision making, at the center of our policy proposition, and of course at the center of our strategic focus and vision for the future of this country and the African continent. Yesterday we had a successful Citizen National Assembly where we brought in our change champions from different clusters across the country and our representative in various communities from the southern, northern, eastern, central regions to discuss the way forward for our party. We looked at the national question facing our people, and it is our respective view that at the center of the national question is issues around accountability and equity, particularly noting the deplorable economic conditions that our people are facing. We discuss in respect of that the decay of the economy, erosion of salaries, and the increased cost of living, making it very difficult for Zimbabweans to survive. Most of Zimbabweans surviving at less than US 45 cents a day and finding very difficult to survive. Again, in this meeting, we looked, of course, at the just ended Blitz voter registration process, which obviously generated a lot of enthusiasm and excitement from different Zimbabweans across the country, and noted, of course, that we felt from our different reports across the country that the period was a bit shorter for Zimbabweans. You know that almost 1 million of Zimbabweans who are eligible to vote have not been able to register, and we appreciate that ZEC district offices are still open and urge everyone who hasn't registered to go and register in these various centers in districts across the country. The Citizen National Assembly also noted with great concern the continued incarceration and detention of Honorable Job Sikala. You know that he has been in prison for 289 days now, and we think that there's been abuse, criminally so, of the court to try and advance a political agenda against those who differ with the regime and of course those that represent our citizens. We resolved to ensure that we exhaust the existing legal and political routes to ensure that we guarantee the freedom of our change champion, Honorable Job Sikala. In this assembly, we also noted that it is important to prepare our movement as we go into the election. You know that change is upon us, transformation is upon us, and it is important, fellow Zimbabweans, that the movement becomes well-oiled and ready. And part of the preparedness of that process is to ensure that we have our candidates who are going to represent the party in local authorities, in parliament, and of course the one who's going to represent us as our presidential candidate. So we went on to discuss the process in terms of what is going to happen. And we are here, fellow Zimbabweans, to explain to you in summary how we are going to have representatives from local authorities, from parliament, and the presidential candidates to represent CCC. And at the center of the discussion was about making sure that we have candidates that come from the citizens, that come from the people. So it is at the center of this candidate selection process that we want to communicate with you today, so that you citizens, you members of the media, and interested parties, different stakeholders, are able to understand our presentation in clarity and precision, how we are going to be emphasizing a citizen-centric process to produce citizen representatives. So with me, I have got our change champion responsible for electoral processes in our party to articulate to you in summary how we are going to be selecting our candidate in what we call a consensus candidate selection process, which has various stages that we are going to be taking, so that all interested parties become aware how our process is going to be happening and how citizens are able to participate, so that at the end of this process we are able to produce candidates of the people. So I would invite you, Senior, to address the media and the people of Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Stalos. Just allow me a few seconds to find the page. Yes, it's a very exciting period for many of us. We're moving towards the actual contest, hopefully in terms of and in line with the Constitution and its prescription on when that election should be held, relative to the recently announced delimitation boundaries. We have had our concerns that those constitutional provisions might be ignored. But so far it seems to be on course. This is a momentous occasion for us to actualize, as Ostalos has said, our citizen democracy philosophy, where we will transact our politics with citizens at the center. It is something new, so we're going to nominate our candidates in terms of those that are expressed as preferences of the communities that they will represent. And in order to do so, I will make reference to a number of committees that have been formulated and adopted by the Citizen National Assembly yesterday to oversee that process. As Ostalos has mentioned, the positions open for nomination are, of course, for president, senators, councillors, members of the House of Assembly, proportional women representatives, the youth quota, women proportional list for the local government, and provincial councillors. And I will do no more than summarize the procedure in this forum, not to take too much of your time, but we have the soft copy of the procedures for circulation so that we are completely transparent. Community members who have signed into our citizen membership database shall be consulted to nominate their preferred representatives for each category in their respective communities. The process will be presided over by members of an independent candidate selection panel, in short ICSP. Nominees, whoever they may be, will be given the opportunity to either accept gladly or decline gladly that nomination. In the event that more than one nominee it comes up to a position, there is a process of consultation within the community, which will be the second round of interface with communities with a view to arriving at a single candidate per electable position. All nominated individuals will undergo our own internal vetting process to ascertain their suitability. We would not want to be given candidates by our opponents. Then after the vetting and validation of nominated candidates, a full list of successful candidates will then be announced and further validation undertaken before confirmation of the full list of those candidates by this National Citizen Assembly. Committees. We will have in charge of the whole process the independent candidate selection panel. This committee is constituted of independent, eminent members of the community who shall preside over the nomination process and the validation process. The validation process is a very intricate and complicated one, and I'll make reference to it a bit later. The second committee is a grievance handling committee, because in any process of this nature, invariably someone will feel that they are shortchanged. And this independent committee, also of eminent members of the community, shall receive and handle any such grievances. And there's a process which ensures that their right to be heard is respected. Then there's the Citizen National Assembly itself, which CNA, which Bostalos has mentioned. It's a bare body constituted of members of the citizens movement, and in fact, literally all of them have spent incredible amount of time doing outreach work in communities, and they are very, very clear of where we are heading. Timeline. The nomination process shall commence on the 5th of April, and we will be present and undertaking this process in all the wards nationally. I'm told it's 1,970. So it's going to be an exciting time. Now, in the event that more than one nominee emerges from the nomination process for any electable position, the CNA will convene and will provide directions in terms of the next step, which is mainly the consensus building process. So typically, therefore, we feel very excited that we have a process now which will give effect to the pronouncements that whatever decisions are taken by CCC will have citizens at the center. And I would mention that the process will be at 3 levels. The first tier is the consultation among the citizens who are on the database that I referred to earlier. The independent candidate selection panel is derolled or decentralized to the lower echelons. So they will themselves also be consulting stakeholders for their nominations. The third tier is where an individual who, for one reason or another, is not on our registers, member of the database, and does not belong in any of the various stakeholders, has an opportunity to address themselves through any numbers of mobile numbers that will be posted for them to access. So the whole point is to try and give an opportunity to identify that a singular citizen who resonates popularly and is judged by the citizens to be effective in representing them at whatever level, be it the local authority, be it parliament, or even the top job itself. That, in short, is where we're heading. And what we would be happy to do is to circulate the electronic version, which you can read, and we would love any constructive suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Champion Makoni, for the presentation on how we are going to be conducting our processes and in terms of the dates that we are going to be taking. Just before I take question, let me also hasten to emphasize that the Citizen National Assembly discussed deeply with grave concern the levels of corruption in our country. We've consistently argued as a movement and as an alternative government that at the center of the decay of the economic in our country is the extraction and plunder of our resources by a few for the benefit of the few and not for the many. You are aware, fellow citizens, of the documentary that has been done by Al Jazeera about the gold mafia that is extracting our country for the benefit of the few. And we have said that for avoidance of doubt, government has been implicated in the presidency in that documentary, and it is now time, in our respectful view as a movement, that instead of persecuting journalists, instead of politicking, the state institutions must be invoked, and they must be able to answer to the citizens of this country and give a statement in terms of what has been done thus far, in terms of ensuring that what has been alleged, what has been brought out bare for all to see is being resolved and dealt with. That is the purpose of the institutions of this country, the National Prosecuting Authority and its various organs of the state that are responsible with dealing with corruption in our country. This, in our respectful view, has a bearing on the confidence deficit that has been grappling with our country in terms of its economic performance. And therefore, an answer and direction and, of course, explanation of the processes is very important if we are to deal with issues of confidence in our economy. With that, I think that I can invite different members of the media to ask any questions for clarification so that we clarify where there are gray areas. Thank you. Okay, so we'll start with you, Ruth, then Law, and then my brother.
Thank you so much, Austelos. And I don't go for the Mamakoni kuti mangoti pa kuti muchatanga muswani muchasira kuti urongwa hwenyu hunosvika hunopera muswani. And then the second question is, yamuri kuti independent panel ina nani, diva nani. And then the last question is, pane urongwa here mubato renyu wekuti macommunity akanominata munhu asiri mudatabase renyu sezvamuritaura kuti mune database, and maybe also kuti munditsanangurira kuti database renyu are these paid off members kana kuti how did you come about with the database? Mune urongwa here hwekuti pakanominatwa toti for instance Mulondolozi, let me give an example of a working colleague. Not necessarily to say that you contest the election. But toti kwadomwa Mulondolozi nevanhu vekuwarren park. Mune urongwa here hwekuti kunyange zvazvo vasiri mudatabase renyu, but very people of repute, very respected by the community, and vachikwanisa kudeliver. Vanokwanisa kupinda-pindawo ipapa.
Thank you. Maybe you can respond, then I'll proceed. Thank you.
Yeah, yes. Regarding tange ne mbunzo wokupedzisira wamabvunzo. Isusu tiri kuti triple C iri kuti toda kuti unze matongerwe enyika matsva zvichireva kuti urongwa uhwu ngaunge huine macitizens pakati pavo, zvichireva kuti izvo sechinhu chitsva tikataurwa nzizvozvi ndisister Ellen vari kudikwa ivo vasiri muchirongwa chatiri, vasiri mudatabase. Chatinongoita chete sekutsanangura kwandaita ndekuti tinozoda kuzonoongorora kuti izvo havasi munhu atapiwa here nevatinokwikwidzana navo. But otherwise, hapana any exception. Pamubvunzo wenyu wokutanga wokuti tanga wokutaurira kuti tiri kutangisa musi wa 1 April. Musi wa 5 April, sorry. Yes, tinoda kuti process yedu ipere nekukurumidza. By the end of the day, musi wa 5 April, toda tanga tagashira ma nominations achona here. Haasi kuuya kuna Makone kana kuti kuna Ng'uwe kana kuti kuna Austelos, ari kuenda independent candidate selection panel iwan. Ndivo vanozoita analysis yavo yananga ichibvetsa kutaura pachidimbu. Analysis yavo inozotipa kuti yochi pa ward 17 yemuHarare ndo mazita abuda. Pa ward yakati kuti ndio mazita abuda kadara. And then we'll take it up from there. Tarisiro yedu ndiye kuti yochi process iyo inofanira kunge ichipera even allowing for the grievances angangouya inside 2 weeks. Which mubvunzo pachirongo?
Independent panel.
Yes, mazita independent candidate selection panel ari kubudiswa manje uno. Changoti misa kuti tisataure nhasi ndekuti in 1 or 2 cases tichiri kuita consultation now. Nokuti hatisi kutaura zita remunhu anenge asati atichi hongu tiri chose. Ndozvega zvo.
Thank you very much, Councillor Makoni. Also for the benefit of you, my sister Utendo, on the repute that you talked about. I watched the list that was put on the public domain from our competitors, and one of the things that becomes very clear for any ordinary citizen to see is that they've put forward people of questionable characters. You have seen how most of them are involved in the extraction of our country. You have seen how most of them are very scandalous, criminal records. They've been put forward to become their candidates. And on the other hand, the alternative has put forward representatives coming from the people that are supposed to be chosen. And one of the things that we emphasize to our people who are going to making these choices is that make sure you fellow citizens that when you are nominating candidates, there must be people of reputable characters, because this is a reputable movement, and we expect members of parliament with content. We expect members of parliament who work with the people in communities. Those people must not come from Harare. Those people must come from the people, because they must be working with the people, having been with the people, having stayed with the people. The representative that the people know that they're not going to put their stomachs, they're not going to put their selfish interest ahead of the collective interest of the people. So for us, reputation is going to be an important credential. And we also express that to our people. And don't worry that when citizens want to nominate you, anyone can say that, no, you don't have these years or experience in the struggle, or you don't belong to our database. We want people that are coming from the people. What we cannot do, and that cannot be mistaken for having criminals or people who don't belong generally to the citizens. And we know who are the people that belong to the people, because there are people who associate with what the opposite, who associate oppositely so with what our people expect. So let me take a question from Brother Mlondolozi and my brother, so that we are able to move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Osales. My question to you would be, how confident are you that this process will produce candidates that are not compromised? And also, how are you going to deal with imposition of candidates? Your critics argue that this process may lead to the imposition of candidates due to the fact that generally it's very difficult to come up with a consensus. It's difficult to have one person being nominated in a community. How are you going to deal with those cases? For instance, in Warren Park, we hear that there are already 7 people that are canvassing and are checking people that people want them. So how confident are you that you are going to deal with the imposition?
Thank you. Yes, my brother.
Yes, it's just maybe a follow-up question to you. But right, so in terms of the independent body matter selection criteria, how much is needed to select these people? Number one. Number two, is there benchmark standards here, like my councillors, CC towards the selection? Because from the previous experience, that was road one watch or 29 constituency, Kalamwadi body standing for the CC. Are there any other things that you are doing? Are you working with the nearest local authorities to check in the database? Are they paid up residents? Are they appropriate owners?
No, thank you very much. That's a very important question. I'll start with the important question raised by Londolozi around imposition. This process was actually designed to ensure that we actually do away with imposition. You know, my brother Mlondolozi, that yesterday election produced double candidates on the basis that the people collectively were not consulted, and for one reason or the other, it became the decisions of a minority at the top. So what we are not going to do as a non-negotiable principled position of our movement is having individuals at the top who can either decide on their own or in bars or in boardrooms or in caucus platforms to say in that constituency we want so and so. We have made it very clear to our members that don't have your money being misappropriated by malcontents from anywhere, whether within or without, telling you that we have control of the process and we can produce you as a candidate. It's the people who are going to decide. It's not the principal, it's not the leadership, it is the citizen. And when you do that, you are automatically avoiding imposition. So it's a non-negotiable position. Number two, on the question of people who are canvassing, it is their political right for people to want to represent the party. But what we have said is that on top of you wanting, we want to hear what the people want. Because the reverse of this process is having a person who said, I want to be a leader, whereas the people don't want you to be a representative. And that dovetails to your question, my brother, that how do you avoid making sure there are rules that are set by the commission, there are rules that exist in our country. So our body politic consumes those rules naturally so, because I can wake up as Ostalos and say I want to be a councillor in Zaraban because I won't be able to be qualified when we take our names to the commission. So naturally the process will produce people that come from the community. So again, it comes with the member of parliament. Again, it comes with our presidential candidate. You must be able to be someone who's reputable, someone who's nominated by the people from across the entire part of the country, and someone who's qualified, because there are laws that have been set for one to be a presidential candidate. So we cannot have someone waking up, whether they are, maybe they are below the age that is required to be a presidential candidate. So naturally, that person will be nominated but will fail at the validation process. We are obviously our validation process is going to make sure that we deal with people that belong to the Citizens Project who would want to attempt to come and join us. I hope that has been clarified, unless they are. Yes, my brother?
Just one. You spoke of a panel that's going to select the candidates at the end of the day. In terms of grievances, there are two candidates that have been selected. Who finally determines which candidate stands for you? And that panel, how are they going to ensure that everyone is covered?
Thank you very much. I will allow our champion on elections to respond to that technical question.
You know, we learned quite a few lessons in the past by-elections. We desisted from the temptation of primary elections. And the process that I summarized involves consultation towards consensus. So therefore, it is not the independent candidate selection panel choosing. It is the citizens, it is the stakeholders who are involved in that consensus building process. As an example, to use the one that you outlined, where you could say two people really each feeling that I'm wanted because they've been nominated, we'll give an opportunity to each of them to sell themselves to the community. It's what we're calling the citizens' caucuses. You will be able to read all those in the detailed publication that forms part of this press conference. So let's move away from the temptation that there's imposition. No. The experience that we had in the by-elections, and they were very imperfect, but it gave us an opportunity to polish it up, and we're ready for it.
Thank you very much, my brother Effort, and I think that that question has been answered clearly, and I think Ru has a pending question.
Thank you, Ostalos. Saka nomination in Shabata to the top most position. She tells us part of our names or
Thank you very much, Rutendo, for that question. And I think that our nomination form, which we're also going to circulate, you see that in our nomination form, we ask with great respect Zimbabwean citizens to elect firstly those that they prefer to represent them as a councillor. When they do so, they also nominate again in that form the person whom they prefer to be on the proportional representation of local authorities. From there, we move to Parliament and say to fellow citizens, make a choice here in Kwazana. Who is supposed to represent you in Kwazana East constituents? But go ahead and make a nomination on who should be on the PR seat for Parliament here in Harare province. Again, we do the same with senatorial seats that will be up. So that list is not going to be drawn from boardrooms, but it's going to come from the people. From there, we are also going to proceed, Rutendo, for avoidance of doubt, and ask Zimbabweans across the country, who do they think should be the representative of CCC as a presidential candidate? And once we get those nominations, we are going to proceed equally on the same process for validation of our councillor nominated, member of parliament nominated, and more importantly, presidential candidates nominated. From there, we go back to the people as has been explained. So the process is affecting every candidate that is going to represent CCC, whether as a councillor or a member of parliament or at the youth quota level or our presidential candidate. And I hope that has been cleared. So it's a process that we are going to be initiating on the 5th of April. Yes.
I guess we are slow
Can you speak a bit louder?
I guess I may have been slow in hearing some of the aspects which you've spoken about, but I think there was a question which came earlier, which was not addressed in relation to person specification. What are the minimum specifics of the persons who hold office? What do you expect from them?
Okay.
You have not stated that clearly.
I'll let Ellen come in on. So I'll let Ellen to respond to that technical question. But like he has said, is there on the template and on the pro document, but I'll let him speak to that so that you are clear, Comrade Zulu. Thank you.
Thank you, Ostalos. Basically, we've in our template, we stated several requirements. Firstly, there are the statutory requirements, which are there in our Electoral Act and in our Constitution. For example, with respect to the age prescription for presidency, 1 year to be 40 years and above. And then also for council, it's 21, parliamentary 18, and also for the youth quota, should be 35 years and above. So those are the statutory requirements. And also there are other requirements. For example, for one to be a council candidate, you have to have your rates cleared. You shouldn't be owing that particular authority some money. And then we have also our qualification requirements that we have set up as a movement. I think Champion Ostalo spoke about them. The starting point with that, with regards to the moral integrity, you know, that's the basic minimum we expect from a person. And also with respect to someone subscribing to the values, philosophies, and principles of the movement. And also, there are other things that we would require. For example, issues to do with asset declarations. You know, remember with regards to some of our people that are in offices, they've been questionable issues regarding to assets. So we want them to clear to say, no, as for me, this is how I stand economically. So that at the end of that year, when his or her tenure progressive, where he is able to actually justify his or her means. And also there are issues to do with the third qualification, which is also equally important, is that of good community standing. Remember, this is a citizen-centered approach. So ideally, that particular person comes from a specific community. One, you should be someone who is visible in that community, who has done some traceable, community work. That is one important issue. And of course, there's the aspect to do with, community moral integrity. We want people that are respectable in communities. Someone who can actually stand up there and people can attest to his or her moral behavior. So that is one other issue. And also, your ability to mobilize within your community. Remember, election is about numbers. So the fact that you are a candidate, you are able to mobilize people around you, that will be a plus in terms of our votes.
Tono sangana ikoko